Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Boro Fan TV and the final Monday night show of 2021. On tonight's programme, we're going to look back on one of Boro's best victories of the calendar year as they defeated Bournemouth at the Riverside on Saturday, building on the promising start of Chris Wilder's reign as Boro manager. After a month in charge, are you now revising your targets for the season, Boro fans, for what the club can hopefully achieve come May? As well as looking back on that game, we're going to look ahead to Boro's festive programme, 3 big games in the next 10 days or so. And we're also going to look back from a 2021 perspective at the Boro and look ahead to next year as well. Joining me to do all that tonight are Joe Scott and David Campbell. Welcome, lads.
Yeah,
welcome, lads.
Great to see you both again. Right, we'll get straight into it. We'll go to the Bournemouth match on Saturday, David. The weekend saw one change to the starting lineup from the game against Stoke. Neil Taylor came in for Mark Bowler, making his debut for the Boro. And what did you make of his performance?
Solid and very experienced, which is what we've been lacking. Obviously Bowler has been playing well under Wilder, and it would have been good to have him there to continue his reign of form. But Taylor came in and we didn't look unbalanced. He defended and attacked. He got that balance right, and you could just tell he's obviously a Wales international. It's just I didn't think he'd last the 90 minutes, to be honest with you. But the tempo of the game dictated, and his experience shone through. And we've seen it when we bought Watmore on a 6-month deal of when they've got a point to prove, and he's done his harm he's caused no harm regarding potentially extending his contract to the end of the season. I wouldn't go beyond that because of his age, but for as a backup, I thought he played really well.
Yeah. So you would extend his deal beyond? I know it runs out middle of January, doesn't it? You would extend that just till the end of the season, David?
I would, just because given his age, I wouldn't go beyond that because I think that's what we need to come away from. But he's on low wages. He'll know this team, and as a backup, I think he's a very good backup for a bowler.
Yeah. Steve Walker's got in touch with us early doors. Hope you're well, Steve. He said, got to give him a permanent deal. Showed his experience on the weekend, just what we need. And I agree with that, Steve. And I think for someone to come in after so little football and put in a performance like that against a really good side, especially going forward, I thought he fitted in seamlessly. I think he's just the sort of player at the back we need. And especially in the second half of the season, I think his experience will be invaluable. But moving on to other things, John, as with so many games recently, we made a really bright start to the match, didn't we?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we did. I think, to be all honest, I think most of the majority of the chances in the first half obviously came Bournemouth's way. I mean, I think the most notable was I think it was Solanke's header in the midway point. But to my opinion, to be honest, I thought the first half was a bit flat from where I stood. But I think the second half, I think the team talk from Wilder obviously did the trick. But I think. And out from obviously, like I said, from our start, most of the first half I think was all Bournemouth. I think in terms of chances, but we just fell a bit flat. And then obviously Wilder, rallied the team talk in the second half.
Okay, and David, I know Joe's alluded that the chances that Bournemouth had, but I think they mainly came from mistakes of our making. And I know we've got to get used to this. Chris Wilder said this is the way we're going to play. But what do you make of the playing out from the back, especially against a team like Bournemouth on Saturday who pressed really high up the pitch? It's going to take time for the players to get used to this approach, but it causes a few issues on Saturday, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think the biggest gripe was from the fans. We're just not used to seeing that. So when Lumley was distributing it, you could feel the nerves and you could see the mistakes coming, but he's doing it with average players who aren't used to it. So the more he does it, the more we all get accustomed to it. Yes, look at Fulham, they do it. They concede goals because of it. But the bigger picture is it gets you playing football and it gets you high up the field. So I can understand why he's doing it. But we've just got to get used to it. And as fans, I think that's why there was a few mistakes, because those fans put the pressure on the players because we just haven't been used to seeing that at all.
Yeah, plus the system that Bournemouth were playing as well. I mean, you had Solanke in the middle, Jaden Anthony on the left, and Ryan Christie on the other side. you can tell straight away that they knew what we're going to be doing in terms of coming out from the back, and they nearly exploited it. Because we had the wing backs further up the pitch, they capitalised on it, but they didn't take the chances. So you can tell that those front three clearly read what Wilder was planning in that system in the first half as well, and that's what caused a little bit of mistakes.
Joe, you're spot on for me. I mean, Bournemouth are a top side, so if you can get away from playing against the back against Bournemouth, then the lesser team, so to speak, I think, you won't have those problems of team who pressing. Imagine Boro, we don't press teams, so if a team like Boro comes to the Riverside, it'll only work in our favour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Joe, you mentioned earlier on about the second 45, and it was really good to see that against much vaunted opponents, again, we made a high-octane start to the second half, and that was paid off when Isaiah Jones got the penalty inside the first 10 minutes. And again, he had another really positive display and performance, didn't he?
Yeah, in the first half, I thought Isaiah Jones was obviously fantastic, and he carried that forward to the second half. And obviously, if I was in perfect position of where the penalty was taken, my initial reaction was the initial contact actually came outside the box when Jaden Anthony came in contact with Jones, and then you can see from the highlights he definitely pushed him in the back inside the box on the follow through. So it took me them to realise it was a penalty in the end, and it was a good thing that Spurra dispatched the penalty, and obviously we got the win after that. And obviously Andras Spurra's come with a lot of praise as well. Obviously we were all singing his praises. Obviously he was in the south stand after he took the penalty. You can tell because obviously Andras Spurra has had a fair few chances in the last few games, but obviously never took. So it was a good thing for him to get score the penalty and him to get his confidence back. And it was a good day for Spurra all round, to be honest.
Yeah. Steve Walker again.
Showed his bottle because he missed a previous chance, didn't he?
Yeah.
Against Stoke, he did.
Yeah. Steve Walker.
Minutes earlier, the keeper saved it with his feet, didn't he? So when he got the penalty, I thought, this is going to show some nerve here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. But I think, again, as with the first half, Dave, we said about the second half, the last 12, 18 months, we've talked on a number of occasions, David. I've lost count the number of times we've spoke about sloppy start of the second half, always being slow. Yeah. Is it surprised you how quickly this has changed within just over a month of Chris Wilder taking charge, that we now seem to be a team that comes out re-energised at the start of second halves?
Yeah, and you can only put that down to fitness, James, I think, can't you? And what has changed within the last 6 weeks must be miracles behind the scenes regarding fitness, because, players have got a point to prove, and they should be on the front foot from the start. But like you say, we're so used to coming out and letting teams play, and I think he's putting the onus on the teams coming to the Riverside, saying you're not having an easy task. And even throughout the game, you're talking at the beginning of the second half, we're playing, but we're keeping that tempo for the full 90 minutes now, which we haven't seen in a long time. So that's got to come from fitness as well.
Yeah. Jay Wilson agrees with you. He said there, Boro looked fitter as well. First, the chance down, just wanted it more. So, Jay's also agreeing about fitness being an issue there. And talking of surprise and how things have changed quickly, you mentioned Andras Spurra there, Joe. It took some guts to step up and take that penalty, because there was a lot of pressure on him for a number of reasons, wasn't there?
Yeah, as I said, he had numerous chances against Huddersfield and Stoke, which from Mortem we pretty much were sitters, but he never took them. But obviously we knew about his penalty record anyway. Obviously he scored one earlier in the season against Cardiff. So I had almost confidence in Spurra taking the spot kick, and obviously he dispatched it well. But going on afterwards, I think there were numerous chances for us to get even more. I think I've seen one comment where we could have won at least about 2-3 goals in the second half, because Spurra had that chance earlier before the penalty, and then the other chances that we had after that, in terms of obviously Hernandez's goal was disallowed for offside, which obviously I was one of the first ones to spot the linesman's flag, to be honest, when Hernandez put it in the net. But and then Tav had to sit there earlier, so it was a good thing, Spurra got us a goal to win us the game against a very tough Bournemouth side.
Yeah, Timmy Leach has mentioned there we're playing as a team now. Josh Nicholson, hope you're well, mate, and it was a good result at the weekend. And David, I think what's maybe been overlooked in some parts as well is the fact that how relatively comfortable we looked in the second half against a talented Bournemouth side on Saturday. We saw that game out relatively comfortably, didn't we?
We did. We won the midfield battle, and Philip Billing couldn't join the attacks. We stopped that midfield threat, and I think Bournemouth like to push on and get their midfielders involved. But we dominated. And look, I mean, we got quite a lot of chances towards the end because they pushed forward, but I didn't really see us conceding. I think that just shows how well drilled what Wilder's got this side from what we've seen under Warnock. Under Warnock, we look disjointed. Now it just looks like we're fluid, but everybody knows their tasks.
Yeah. And if you're nitpicking, John, look, always mentioned this and raised it. He's saying there, the one thing you could maybe raise is that we're maybe not clinical enough in front of goal. And as you mentioned a little bit earlier, there was a few chances that went begging again on Saturday, particularly in the second half, wasn't there?
Yeah, like I said, before the penalty when Sparrow had a chance, obviously, when Travers made that save. And it could have been two, particularly Onel Hernandez could started in, but obviously, I think I was one of the first ones in the south stands to spot the offside flag. We're going up straight away, and the rest of the others behind me were just celebrating like heck. So, but going back to that, there was a few games where we could have took our chances, but like I said, we weren't clinical enough. You mean you look at even though the games we have won against Huddersfield, and obviously the one we drew against Stoke. I mean, I think it's going to be one of our problems we're going to need to focus on whilst in charge is that we need to be more clinical in front of goal and take our chances. But most of the time, obviously, we haven't done them.
Yeah,
getting a striker who scores goals in the Championship, it isn't going to come cheap. You look at Mitrovic, you look at the wage he's on. So yeah, we're not clinical enough, but they're hard to come by. They're like gold just getting these strikers, aren't they? So I think we just have to be a little bit patient, except we are going to miss chances because we're not going to be paying 40, 50 grand out a week to sign that striker who is consistent enough.
Yeah. David Bentley just mentioned there, David, thanks for getting in touch with us, David, about the fact that maybe Watmore had a quiet game and Tav was in and out of things. Again, he did a lot of good work without the ball. Missed some good chances, but again, he worked hard. Can't fault him for his work rate, but he maybe should be getting more goals in the position he plays in. But there you go. You've taken on the team who was second in the table at the weekend, still second at the moment. And maybe one or two players still had a little bit of an off day, but you won. I mean, that speaks volumes. And it's like 3 consecutive games now against good sides, Swansea, Stoke and Bournemouth, 3 clean sheets. I mean, what do you put this transformation down to?
Identity for me. We've got a structure. We're sticking. We're not deviating off it. We're not going 4-3-2-1 and then going 5-3-2. He's sticking with the formation. He's sticking with the same players. And we've got an identity. We're playing out from the back. Everybody knows the task. And it is really that simple. I mean, it sounds daft, but when players know what they're doing week in, week out, it's easier to manage games and you get fluidity. And I think that's why we're seeing good performances from. We know there's going to be bumps along the road, but when you're sticking to the same principles, I think it goes a long way. And Wilder has got an identity back, and I think it's 100%. We've got to get behind him, and I'm really excited for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be Boro fans if there was something not to have a go about. And I think again, I had plenty of it sat around where I was on Saturday, and there was still people having a bit of a moan and whinge at Marcus Tavernier, Joe. And I mean, some might say it's justified. I mean, as Anthony Lee Murphy said, he had 21 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, not good enough. Can you understand why people are getting on his case? Or do you think, look, do you know what? Look at the bigger picture. He's part of a team that are on a good run at the moment. If Chris Wilder didn't rate what he was doing, he wouldn't pick him for the team. So get off his case. Or do you think Piero should be coming in instead of him?
Well, I think it's quite debatable at times because I think for most Boro fans, pretty much for this entire season, Marcus Tavernier has been pretty much of a human question mark at times. You never know what you're going to get from him, really. But I think if I was Wilder, I think there will be a point in the time where if Tavernier is not performing to the standards that we require, you obviously want to slot in Piero. But obviously, Piero's got a little bit of injury issues he has at the moment, and he's not fully 100% fit. So I can understand why he's still putting Tab in there at the moment. But I think, to be honest, the Bournemouth game was actually one of the best games that Tab's played this season. Bearing in mind, obviously, he had a good chance to extend the league towards the end. So, I mean, it's difficult to tell at this stage. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time if Pierre was 100% fit, and obviously it'll be a tough decision for Wilder who to put in that position, either Tavernier or Piero.
Yeah, it's great.
What's your opinion on Tav, James? Because for me, I appreciate what he does off the ball, but I don't expect him to score goals. I don't expect him to do assists because he hasn't done that in the 4 seasons he's been. He's never really hit double figures in both categories. So I see his overall all game where I think a lot of fans just see the goals and assists, they don't see the other side.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I like him, and I know he has his faults, which are probably his finishing and sometimes his decision making in the final third. But I think he creates so many opportunities, not direct opportunities, but the space that he creates and the work that he does. And I think the other thing you have to take into consideration with Piero is he's just come to this country. He doesn't know what the championship's all about. And yes, we've seen little flashes like in the Cardiff game. We've also seen other games where he's been totally anonymous. So I think it's great that you've got the two of them to choose from. And it might well be that you rotate in certain points further on in the season. But I really like Tav. And I think he'd be one of those players, I think we've said it before on the show, that you'll really appreciate him when he leaves the club. Because I still think he's a top player there. But that's just my opinion. And as I say, there's lots of people coming in with opinions from both sides. Zach Buckley said there, Tav, unbelievable positioning, creates space like no one else. Issue is his finishing's atrocious. And I'm sure Tav will sometimes hold his hand up and say that's the case. Peter Grassham's also mentioned there, he needs to know how to take free kicks and corners. Steve Walker again, he works hard with the shirt. That's half the battle for me as a fan. Hopefully he'll come to the fore in the second half of the season. So all of that, lads, take it all on board. Joe, we said at the top of the show, what are your expectations for the season? And have they now changed from when Chris Wilder took the job on at the beginning of November? Do you now think genuinely top 6 that is open for us to get?
It's definitely open for us. I mean, obviously depending on what's going to happen later on in the season because of this whole Omicron situation, but it's looking positive. I mean, it's definitely looking positive. I mean, like I said when he took over, I think his record at Sheffield United and what he's done for them, it could work in our favour for us. So I'm not saying 100% that I'm looking for the top 6 finish yet, but hopefully that will happen. But he's obviously taking the club in the right direction, and that's something for us as fans of the club to be positive about.
How about yourself, David? Have you revised your targets for the season?
Yeah, well, under obviously Warnock, I didn't see the top 6, but when we made that change, for me it showed a bit of ambition because it was strange timing. It was perfect timing, but it was strange timing. I thought as soon as they made the point when they did, that was like to say, right, we're going to give it a good go. If they hadn't have made it, I would have thought the season was just going to peter out. Look, he's got off to a very good start, and I think January will be massive for him. I think if he can get January right, I only think 2 or 3. I don't think, yes, long-term issue, I think there is a wholesale changes, but in January, I think there's just 2 or 3 he really needs to target. If he gets them right, I can't see why we can't finish in the top 6. I mean, look at Coventry. Coventry were guns blazing. They've lost a few now and they're just above us. So it just shows the inconsistency of the league. And we're on good form at the moment.
Yeah, Liam Wilder. The Wilder wagon is rolling on. Wembley, here we come. I genuinely believe that. Peter Grasham, he said if we play like we did on Saturday, we could do the top 6. And Timmy Leach again has said top 6. I think we'll have to see if we bring in the January window. And that's a big issue for, I think, lots of clubs in the Championship, but no more so than us. Before we move off the Bournemouth game, David, the other thing that we talked about after the match was the banner put up by the Red Faction, and hats off for them for doing that because Obviously, we weren't having to travel the 600 odd miles that the Bournemouth fans were doing, but
Yeah.
they're kind of highlighting the unfairness of the rescheduling of fixtures and times when it comes to inconvenience, the paying fan. Great gesture, great effort. Do you think it'll actually change anything, though?
No, it won't. I mean, the same banner was held up at Cardiff when we were kicking off at 12:30 against Cardiff a few weeks ago. I just want to know who makes these selections, because Bournemouth and Middlesbrough wasn't a massive game 6 weeks ago when they changed the fixture list. So I think someone who's selecting these games needs to be a little bit more savvy in looking at the travel, looking at the mileage, and looking at what sort of game it is as well. You know, it had nothing on it 6 weeks ago, the game relying on it. Yes, now we're both in good form, but 6 weeks ago we weren't. But I don't think the banner will make a difference. It's all about money, and they don't look at the fans and how much they have to travel. Same with when you play on a Tuesday night and then you play on the Saturday. They don't look at where the fans are travelling. They just don't care.
Yeah, I think like obviously like what David said there, but I think it's kind of 6-2 freeze in a negative way, which obviously when you're on the Sky in particular, like either the early kickoff or the late kickoff, it certainly doesn't work in favour of the fans. I mean, you obviously don't want to wake up early to get to a game, but you don't want to come home dead late either. So that's, like I say, 6-2 freeze in a negative way.
They did it to Newcastle a couple of seasons ago at Arsenal, didn't they, over Christmas? And there was no trains for the Newcastle fans to get back. You know, I mean, who's making these decisions? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. David Smith there mentioned great results Saturday. Need to keep it going. And he's made reference there to the buses bringing the Bournemouth fans. Some of them left Weymouth at 1:15 in the morning, which is, like, as he says, complete madness. Going back to the top six discussion, Adam Middleton saying their consistency the key. While they start to get that in place, and we're looking forward to the transfer window. And David Bentley's also said, I see no reason for us not to get to the playoffs. We faced all the sides in the league. No one has steamrolled us. And with a bit of luck and consistency, we can make it. So, lads, with that in mind, we'll look ahead to the festive season, hopefully. We've gone into the last 3 games with 7 points. Really healthy return from 3 challenging games. But the festive programme brings 3 tough games again up ahead in the next 10 days or so, Joe. Starting with Nottingham Forest on Boxing Day at the Riverside. And Steve Cooper, we've talked about Chris Wilder and the effect that he's had at the Boro, but Steve Cooper has dramatically changed things at the City Ground in the last 3 months, hasn't he?
He certainly has. I mean, we look at them when we played them at the City Ground early in the season, when they were under Chris Hughton, and you can tell they were at the lowest at the low at the time. But yeah. I think after that game, that's when Hughton got the sack. But since Steve Cooper took over for them, they've been absolutely on form at this time. Obviously, they've got brilliant players in there as well. You look at Lewis Grabban, for example, and Brennan Johnson, who I've been really impressed with this season. And you've got Zingerlager with them at the front 3. And then obviously I have to mention Jed Spence. Obviously, he won't be playing against us because he's not eligible to play against his parent club. Obviously, the rumours going about he could be coming back to us come next month. But they're a tough side to beat at Forest. I mean, considering, where they were at the start of the season all the way till now, I mean, they've got that 2-1 win against Hull last time out, which obviously shows they were a team, they're runs in contention and possibly chasing the top 6 come the end of the season. So we're in for a tough test against them on Boxing Day.
Yeah. And David, I was just going to mention there, I mean, they've got a better away record than home record this season, Forest. Expect probably a big crowd in the Riverside on Sunday, isn't it? Next Sunday, the Boxing Day game.
Yeah.
It's another huge match, but another big test because, again, you're playing a side that's up there on another good run of form, just as ourselves are. But, again, the expectations are starting to rise amongst Boro fans. So it's another big test, isn't it?
It is. I don't like to look at stats. I think they're very misleading. That said Bournemouth have got the tough record and they came in and they look like a team playing against us who struggle away from home. They didn't have no pattern to play, so I don't like to look at the stats too much. But yeah, as Boro fans, we just concentrate on get your home form right and anything's a bonus. And it's going to be a packed crowd, like you say, and I think there'll be a lot of fans. It'll be the first time they've seen under Wilder, so we need to point and prove to these fans that we've turned the table and we're on the up. And I think we'll put on a good show. It'll be a tough game. Forest will be a tough game, but look, they're all tough games in the Championship, and I fully expect us to get a result, and that's just because of the way we're playing.
Yeah. Go on then, lads. Nick on the chopping block. What's the score going to be? Come to you first, Joe. Forest, Boxing Day at the Riverside. What will it be?
Obviously, considering the record we have at home, and obviously, like you said, Forest have been good away from home all season. There'll definitely be goals in this, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. Steve Walker's gone 1-0 Boro, but a tougher game than the one at the City Ground. Luke Boyd's gone 2-1 Boro. Chris Sykes 3-0 Boro. What about yourself, David?
Well, I've got the last two right, so I can't make it a hat trick. But I just think we're going to put on a show for these fans. You know, we usually do well at Boxing Day, apart from the Tony Pulis first game, but we usually do well. I reckon 2-0.
2-0, yeah, 2-0. So,
what about yourself?
I do expect. I think it'll be a really tough game, hard-fought game, but I'm expecting Boro to win 2-1. I think it'll be a tough one. Lee Fisher's got in touch with us. Lee, ace predictor. He's also gone 2-1 Boro win. And he said it's fine those wanting Jed Spence back, but that could have a massive impact on Jones. Plus the way that we set up, Jones is more of a team player. And I think we talked about this on last week's show as well, didn't we, David? And I think most Boro fans have now come to the understanding or belief that maybe it might be better letting Jones continue in that role. And if Spence is happy enough at Forest, which it seems like he is, let him see out the season there.
100%. Jones has proven fans wrong, isn't he, by this right wing back formation? We all thought he was going to be a little bit naive defensively, but he's made that position his own. And look, I know Darnell Fisher's out for a while, but once Darnell Fisher comes along, who's a natural right back, you can't see him getting back in. And you know, Jones had the beating of Zamora all game. I just wish he attacked him more. And again, that's probably confidence. I don't know. It's something drilled into him, but he had him, you know, on toast all game, and you just was driving him on to do it consistently for the 90 minutes and keep Spence well away. He's a bad apple. He doesn't want to be here. He said as much. Forest ain't going to sign him permanently because they won't be able to afford him, but keep him away. We want to come away from bad apples like that.
Interesting. Chris Sykes, I think, is pretty much agreeing with this, saying Spencer's better off staying where he is. We'll move on from Forest now, John. Hopefully after that, we're away at Blackpool at Bloomfield Road next week. But obviously, you can't ignore what's happening in the grander scheme of things at the minute, Joe. I mean, 6 out of 10 matches were off in the Premier League at the weekend. I think in the EFL, there was 19 matches out of 36, so over half the EFL programme fell victim to COVID-related issues at the minute and games being off. I know today the Premier League have now said that there's not going to be any delay of games and games are going to continue for the foreseeable. Do you think we're going to get through this festive programme without any disruption from a Boro point of view?
Well, the looks of the fixtures, I mean, I don't think there's a chance where we should keep going with our festive fixtures coming up. I mean, obviously there was talks about possibly a couple of weeks break with a circuit breaker lockdown looming, but which I'm hoping would not happen. But I mean, looking at it this way, I mean, the 3 teams that we've got coming up, they've not got any cancellations due to the COVID period. I mean, I think obviously Sheffield United had one of them, but that's not on their fault. But Blackpool and Forest, they had no stops due to COVID. But so don't see why not we can complete our fixtures. I mean, I know looking at earlier today, I know one fixture on Boxing Day has been called off, and that's the Cardiff City against Coventry game.
I think there's 2 now, Joe. It's like Barnsley Stoke's gone as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the outbreaks in the Cardiff camp. I think the outbreaks in the away side camp. I don't think it's Barnsley's, but it's concerning. I mean, obviously, both the Premier League and the EFL have come out and said, you know, they're willing to continue fulfilling the fixtures, but and obviously it has to be done. It has to be done. But it is worrying looking at it. But the only way I can see it from a fan's perspective, I mean, if we have to go through like a 2-week break with a possible circuit breaker thing, I mean, that's something that has to be done. But like I said, it's just rumours at the moment about this whole thing. But I'm happy to continue on with the current fixtures as of this moment.
Yeah,
I
Michael
mean, the
Pellin
teams
said
that had their game cancelled on Saturday, they were called off well in advance before Saturday, so their isolation period should have ended by that point. So there's no reason why their game shouldn't be back on.
Yeah, Michael Pellin, you've got a long memory, mate. Definitely there. Boro called game off will be deducted 3 points.
I was happy to see that today. Did you see about Tottenham?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm happy about that. I also think something should be done to Aston Villa about what happened with them at the weekend, getting that game called off against Burnley. I just think that's shocking that they call a game off 2 hours before it's meant to kick off, and you're going on the tests that were done the day before on a Friday. Yet you're only calling the game off 2 hours before. I mean, that's shocking. That I mean, something should be done.
I think Chelsea tried to do the same thing at the weekend as well for their away game at Wolves. I think it was a couple of hours before the game. They tried to get the Premier League to postpone the game, but obviously the Premier League were having none of it.
Yeah, and Joe, again, another thing for me about Chelsea is, I mean, how big is their squad? I think each season they send about 30 players out on loan to the EFL. They're trying to tell us they can't get 15 players up for a game.
Yeah, probably the size of the Empire State Building.
No chance. Absolutely no chance. The money they've got, they can't raise a team up. I don't care what they sent to Wolves. I'm glad they were made to play that game yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but hopefully, as we said, Blackpool it'll be next week, lads. Joe, it's not always been the happiest hunting ground for us, though, has it, Blackpool?
No, not recently in terms of the Carabao Cup. I mean, obviously, I don't think at the start of the season we were worried about the Carabao Cup anyway. But the one thing that's nice to see as well for the next 2 away games is we're going to have sold out away ends, which is obviously the great away support we've been bringing all season. And Blackpool is certainly one of them that's put most on the Boro fans' trip list, so to speak, for them to go. But obviously, for us, it's not a good place to go to, particularly, going on the night, and we don't have the best of form there. I think the last time I think we won there was in the playoff season. So, I mean, Blackpool are a tough side anyway. I think they're just in around the mid-table spots anyway. But I think, they'll provide a tough test anyway because they want to be in that mode anyway, keeping their place in the Championship, I think, for next season. So, I mean, it'll be a tough game anyway against Blackpool. I mean, they've always, as they proved at the Riverside this season, they're usually a tough side to play against.
Yeah, and that's it, David. I mean, I know probably their number one target for this season is just maybe retaining their Championship status, but at the end of the day, they're only 3 points behind us in the table. I think to have had 30 points at this stage of the season, we've maybe exceeded expectation. But again, it's going to be a tough game, and we owe them. They've put us out the League Cup this season. They also came from behind and turned us over at the Riverside in September. So we could do with getting something from that game next week, couldn't we?
Low budget team. He's carried on League One players from last season, and they've just carried the momentum into this season, haven't they? They relied on their home form, which their fans get behind them at home, and they're very direct. They put it on you, so it'd be interesting to see how we react to that. Because I think the teams that, apart from Millwall, under Wilder, we haven't really come across that teams who are going to be so direct as them. So it'd be interesting to see how we respond to that.
Yeah. I love this Steve Gorby. Hope you're well, Steve. Pulls are playing Mansfield on Boxing Day, our cup opponents in a couple of weeks. And I take that on board. Let's face it, any game in and around Christmas is hard. Diets go out the window and players get tanked up, Steve's saying here. Even if they don't.
He's talking about himself here.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that happening down the Pulls? I can't see Chris Wilder standing for that. I mean, what do you reckon?
Funny thing you should mention Mansfield as well, because Chris Wilder said he wants to give the FA Cup a go this season. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, rather than concentrating on us getting into the top 6.
I don't know. I think the season will dictate what happens with the FA Cup with us. I think if we're hanging about the top 6 and you're still in the FA Cup come maybe 5th round stage, I think you might see a different side. put out them. I still think league comes above everything for us this season. I like a good cup run. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not sure how David feels, but I think getting in the top six has got to out trump the FA Cup this year. I don't know. What do you reckon, David?
I agree with what you said there, with what both of you said. I think he's already talked about trying to get players in for that game, hasn't he? So I think he'll be using them to be bedded in an ideal situation. I found that really interesting about his comments saying that they're on talking terms with players now, and they have been for a number of weeks. It just shows that how much times have changed, and we're thinking ahead, which would be interesting to see going into the Mansfield game.
Yeah. Danny Rose has also said league is more important this year. Zach Buckley said, I'd love a cup run. Some great memories are made, and that's true, that, Zach. I mean, a lot of people look back to the Man City Cup game in 2015 and the win at the Etihad and days like that don't come along that often. So, yeah, good points made. Back to Blackpool, though, Joe and David. Predictions for that one down at Bloomfield Road next week. Coming to you first, Joe.
I'd probably say it's one game we obviously want to finish the year on a high. So I'm willing to take a win in this one. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Boro win.
2-1 Boro. You've got us for 6 points so far out of 6, Joe. Yeah. How about yourself, David?
I think if we take a draw at Blackpool, it'd be unbelievable as well. But it's a tough game. I'm going to go 1-1 at Blackpool. But if we get 3 points, fantastic.
Yeah. Again, a lot of optimism. A lot of Boro fans going for a win. A few going to the draw as well. But a lot of optimism there amongst Boro fans for the game at Blackpool. And then the Christmas period is finished off on New Year's Day with Boro going to Bramall Lane. Chris Wilder makes his first return to Sheffield United. David, what sort of reception do you think you'll get down there?
He'll get a really good response off the fans, and it'll be a Wilder day. As a Boro fan, we're going to hate the day because there's no room for sentiment, and it's how Wilder approaches it. He'll want to go out and he'll want to prove a point, but how many times over the years have we seen ex-players come back to bite us? And it just, for me, it points to a Sheffield United win, unfortunately, because they'll want a point to prove to Wilder. I know we're both going down there, but it's going to be a tough game. And like we said on previously, Paul Heckingbottom, which we thought was a strange decision with the appointment, he's got them playing good football, and they're on the incline as well.
Yeah, a lot of people getting in early, going for draws down at Bramall Lane. I mean, Joe, Sheffield United at the start of the season, a lot of people fancied them when Slavica Jokanovic took over to be right up there amongst the promotion race. And there's still time for him to get up there, but do you think they will with Heckingbottom in charge?
I mean, if they continue to form the way they have at the moment, obviously they're on a decent run at the moment, and obviously they're playing tonight away at Fulham, which obviously be a tough ask for them. But obviously, if they keep the form the way they have now, I mean, I don't see no reason they're probably up there in the playoff mix come the end of the seasons, but they need to keep that consistency going. If I was a Sheffield United fan, but obviously Wilder will want to prove a point as well to the Bramall Lane faithful that obviously we still need to keep our one going. So it'd be a tough ask, obviously they got good players in there. Gibbs White has been the main form for them all season when he was on loan there from Wolves, and I think they're still playing a similar sort of system that they're playing since Wilder was there. So it hasn't making for an even game, but obviously I like to see Wilder get a good reception of the Sheffield United fans. But at the end of the day, it's down to business, and we've got to produce a result there, even though it would be a tough ask.
Yeah, I love that Michael Cullen there. He's proving a Boro win and for Chris Wilder to get booed off at the end of the game.
The imagination of Boro fans is unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've all have to Joe then. There's a heck of a lot of optimism going around amongst Boro fans, rightly so, for the run that we're on at the moment. But these are 3 tough fixtures, lads. What do you see as an acceptable points return from the 3 matches? Bearing in mind you've only got 1 at home, 2 away. What for you would be a good return from these 3 games? David, coming to you first.
If we could stay unbeaten and get 5 points, then that would be brilliant. I do anticipate a win and 2 draws, which I'd be over the moon with. So 5 points, anything other than 5 points, we've done absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, Luke agrees with you there. Dan Shaw's gone 7 to 9 points. Peter Grasham 9 points. Joe, what do you think is an acceptable return from these 3 matches?
I'm sticking to the medium bit. I'm going to go for 7. I mean, I'll take a point against Forest, and then the rest I'll take the rest of my wins.
So you think we'll get the 2 wins away from home rather than against Forest on Boxing Day?
I mean, we've done better. We've done better away. I mean, obviously, we obviously had that one defeat at home under Wilder. I think I'm not only taking that as a blip, but I think if we keep up a good, decent away performance, I mean, I don't see why we should come out with both Bloomfield Road and Bramall Lane with 6 points on the board.
Wow.
It's just scoring goals away from home that concerns me. I like Watmore, I like Sparrow, but for me, they're not consistent enough to score goals, and I think at the moment, and I think that's going to be our Achilles heel away from home.
I think it's great. I mean, I don't think I've seen anyone. I've just seen somebody there to put below 5 points. Everyone gone 5. Zach Buckley's just put 4 there. Lose Forest, draw Blackpool, demolish Sheffield United.
Demolish.
Demolish Sheffield United. And then David Bentley's put 7 points. Sheffield's a tough game, settle for a draw. Again, variety of opinions, fantastic. It's what makes the show. Before we sign off, lads, obviously it's our final programme of the year. From a footballing point of view, what's been your highlight of 2021? David, I'll throw this one across to you first, mate.
Well, I've got 2. Can I have 2?
Go on, I'll let you.
Well, from the Boro perspective, it was definitely the first game back in the ground at the home game of the season against Bristol City. I mean, it was just surreal. I didn't see the end in sight, and it just showed how much football meant to us all being back in the ground, and it was like unbelievable. And then the other one has got to be England reaching the Euros. I try telling my kids about it, and obviously they're too young to to appreciate it, but I've never seen us in a final ever, so that may not happen again for a long time. So I know the result wasn't what we wanted, but just how the nation pulled together for that final, apart from on the day, was just surreal, and what an experience.
Yeah, Michael Pellins agreeing with you there, getting back to the Riverside, while Peter Grasham said getting rid of Warnock. How about yourself, Bill? What's been your falling eye of 2021?
I think obviously what I agree with what Dave said there. I think obviously being back at the Riverside has been most important to me. I mean, the actual first time I went back was for the England-Austria game before the Euros. Obviously, good being back there, but it's not like the Borough, is it? Definitely not like the Borough being back in the ground. I mean, back in that first game against Bristol City, I mean, I remember that pre-match pint, pretty much getting back inside the ground. I mean, the ritual that just comes every time, that I've missed for a whole entire year. It was an amazing feeling being back there. I mean, obviously, and again, England in the Euros, I mean, I don't remember being that pumped for us to get for a major final since obviously we were in the Carling Cup final, but obviously it didn't go in our favour in the final. But obviously to see the whole atmosphere from all then throughout the Euros has been, pretty much phenomenal, and something I never experienced in my life. So I would call that my two definite points of 2021. But I think it's just being back at the Riverside. It's just absolutely does it for me. I mean, obviously I'd like to explore a few more grounds for next year, but obviously that's next year. Just focus on the present now.
What's yours, James? And don't say Coventry or Hull away.
No, they're on the downside, them two. I might go along with what Michael Pellet said. He has seen Guesty get older. Well, someone older than me, Guesty. All right, pal. No, I'm pretty much going on with what you said about going back to the Riverside, because everybody missed it massively when it wasn't there. I mean, probably from the lockdown games, the one thing I would say, which was great to see, and it was a shame there was no fans in there, was when young Josh Coburn got his first goal against Sheffield Wednesday. I thought that was a special moment. It's just a shame there wasn't fans in there. But as you've said, Boro are doing all right. Hopefully, we've got better days ahead of us in 2022. The England thing in the summer, that was unbelievable. Just a shame they couldn't have finished it off by winning it. But those games against Germany and Denmark, special things, even just watching it on the TV or watching it with mates and stuff, things that you'll never forget. But that was special in the summer. So following on from that, lads, I mean, what's your footballing hopes for 2022 and the new year? David, you first, pal.
So for mine, it's just we're getting our club back to what we all want, and I think with Wilder, we've got the right appointment, getting the identity as fans. Every fan I've spoke to over the last couple of weeks under Wilder is saying we've got an identity, and that's all we cried out for as a football club, is knowing what we're trying to achieve and the way we're trying to play. And I think if we can continue with that through 2022, I think, we know there's going to be bumps in the road and there'll be times where people get on Wilder's back, but for me, it's very promising as a football club.
Zach Buckley said, would love to see a playoff game at the Riverside in 2022. Is that anywhere on your wish list, Joe? The playoffs come May?
Probably when I look further down the line, if we get to that point in the season, that's where I'll be thinking that'll be on the wish list. But at the moment, it's just keeping our identity, keeping our good form going, and hopefully, when we get towards near enough the nitty gritty end of the season, I think I'll be that's probably the point I'll be hoping for a playoff game at the Riverside and potential trip to Wembley. But at the moment, we just need to keep our form and our identity as a club going.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here saying Chris Wilder's been a great thing for the club, a signal of intent and where the club's going in the future. And Anthony Murphy, again, they say he's bringing stability to the club, and hopefully some top-class players come in January. And it's a possibility that we could make the playoffs. And Dan Shaw, thanks for watching. Dan, he said, bringing Wilder in as a highlight. I did like Warnock, and it was harsh how it was done, but it had to be done for the club, and it's been proved right so far.
I was just going to touch upon that, though, James. I know a lot of people are banging on about Wilder, and rightly so. But I think a lot of praise has got to go to Steve Gibson bringing in Kieran Scott and introducing that new role, because Kieran Scott was the guy who made the chop with Warner. If Kieran Scott was there, would Gibson been ruthless enough? I don't believe he would have. So I reckon a lot of it's got to go down to the Kieran Scott as well. I think he's bringing a lot of stuff to the club that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Michael Pellin, thanks very much for your kind wishes, mate. Hope you and everybody else out there has a good Christmas, and we'll do our send-offs in a few months. Just a final question, lads. It's a bit of fun, I'm sure. Newcastle, Sunderland, Leeds, we all love them. But which one out of those three do you wish has the worst 2022 out of the three? Let's put it that way. Which one out of those three would you wish it to the most? Go on, Joe. You can have that one first.
It was difficult to tell. I mean, on one side you have Leeds who are struggling because of injuries, but I probably don't see them going down if they pick up any more signings and all that in January. But Sunderland, they might have the potential to be back in the Championship possibly next season. So you have to look at perspective. It'd be Newcastle at the moment, unless something drastically happens for them in January. But at the moment, it's looking quite bleak for them. But so I don't know who to wish it upon table on anybody else, because it could potentially come January, it could all change. So it'd be difficult to tell at this point. So at the moment, it's looking like Newcastle, judging by the form.
I know you're going to disagree, James, because you've got a lot of Sunderland fans in your family, but it makes my weekend when Newcastle get beat. And the thought of them getting relegated after...
Put it this way, David. I've got a couple of members of my family, my cousins and all them, they're Newcastle fans, because I've got Geordies in my side of the family, so...
Oh, well, even sweeter for you, Joe. Get them down. Oh, I can't stand the club. Cannot stand them. Jesus.
So it looks like Newcastle win that one outright then, lads. And I think most of the people there that are watching, Michael Pellet said, let's have the richest club in the world in the Championship.
Exactly, Michael. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Denny Rose again. Denny said there Newcastle as well. So wait and see. It'll all be interesting to watch, shall we say, the second half of the season. But above all else, our focus is about the Boro, and hopefully they can achieve success in the second half of the season, all joking aside. I'm afraid that's it for this week's edition and for this year's editions of the Monday Night Show on Boro Fan TV. My thanks go to David and Joe for joining us. Great to see you again, lads.
No, pleasure as always.
And all it remains for me to do is, on behalf of everybody at Boro Fan TV, wish all our viewers a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Fingers crossed we'll return on Monday, January the 3rd to review the festive fixtures. Until then, thanks again for watching. Good night and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
Have a good Christmas, everyone. Up the Boro.
Have a safe Christmas.